Live from the hippest spot online, you've arrived at the Pop Culture Juke Joint, the only weekly podcast you'll need for intelligent showbiz chats. Located just up the street from the Peach Pit and down that dark, damp alley behind Fonzie's garage, you'll find former newsman and current hard-boiled crime writer Anthony Venutolo, chatting with guests about everything from old-school classics to new-school staples. So head up to the bar, grab a drink, and settle in here at the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Now, your host, Anthony Venutolo.
Welcome to another episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint, where each week we delve into a wide variety of topics, including movies, TV, novels, music, comic books, you name it. This episode, we have something a little bit special we're trying out here. Think of it as a mini-sode. Or, you know what, a shot and a beer. How about that? James Bond expert and pop culture extraordinaire Jack Lugo gives us his take on two really interesting shows that we talked about in a prior episode. He gives us his take on the Hap Leonard finale, the second season finale of the fabulous gothic southern noir Hap Leonard. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. He gives us his thoughts on that, as well as the season 3 premiere of the stellar FX drama Fargo. You know what? Could be great, maybe not. We'll see what he thinks, and you know what? So sit back, relax, grab your shot and a beer, and enter the juke joint.
Hi, this is Jack Lugo, and you are listening to the Pop Culture Juke Joint podcast. I just wanted to give a quick reaction to the Hap Leonard season finale. In this finale, you finally get the resolution to the mystery that sparked the season, which was who killed BB, who was the child whose remains are found underneath the floorboards of Uncle Chester's house. And it does not disappoint. I mean, we sung this show's praises during the podcast. So, once again, if you haven't checked out the show, please do. You won't be disappointed. It's a brilliant, brilliant show. In this season finale, it's sort of a denouement, if you will, because Hap Leonard had solved the series of child murders in the previous episodes, and BB's murder was sort of lumped into those, except that you find out in this episode that the same person who murdered the other children is not the person who murdered BB. So you do get that epic showdown that we were hoping for once we were introduced to Brian Dennehy's character. So that goes down in a way that some might be able to predict, some may not. I mean, I sort of saw that there would be a twist, because obviously, Hap Leonard spent most of this episode believing that the sheriff is responsible for BB's death. Now, I won't say whether he is or not, because I don't want to spoil the show for anyone who hasn't checked it out. But I think that epic showdown between Brian Dennehy's character Sheriff Valentine and Hap Leonard, that needed to happen. We needed that confrontation, and we got it. There is, some other really cool character moments in this episode, and obviously I'm hoping that the show gets renewed for season 3. To me, this has been these 6 episodes have been some of the best TV I've seen in a while, and that's saying a lot given how much great TV there is now. So, brilliant show. Once again, if you haven't seen this show, which I know it's sort of been flying under the radar, you owe it to yourself to find this show and watch it. You won't be disappointed. I just watched the highly anticipated season premiere of Fargo Season 3. And this episode, it's not as accessible, at least not immediately, as the prior season openers. I found, Season 1 and Season 2, those first episodes were very easy to get into. This one requires a little bit more patience, but it's worth it. At first it's a bit off-putting because you're not expecting to be in the mid-1980s in East Berlin when you tune into Fargo. So you start off in an interrogation room in East Berlin, and a man is being interrogated about possibly killing his wife, and obviously he's denying it, and even denies being the person that they suspect him to be, or the interrogator, the East German interrogator, suspects that he is. So at some point the camera zooms into a portrait on the wall, and then we're back in our familiar Fargo setting, and you're introduced to a new milieu of characters. You're, the most prominent one being the Ewan McGregor dual role, where he plays twin brothers, and there's the interesting backstory about their inheritance. One of them inherited a Corvette, and the other inherited a stamp collection, and essentially they traded their inheritance one for the other, and the brother that ended up with the stamp collection became hugely successful, while the other brother with the Corvette did not, and he's now a parole officer, and he's engaged to one of his parolees, which is obviously a big no-no. You have your classic scene of one brother asking the other brother for money, which we've seen a few times. But the most interesting thing is, all these, especially the first episode of any season of Fargo, you start off with a violent event, and you do have to wait a while. It does take a little bit of patience to get to it, but you do see how it unfolds. Essentially it's a case of mistaken identity. The brother who now covets the stamp collection sends one of his parolees, or he blackmails one of his parolees to go and rob his brother for the stamp that he now desires, and he wants back, and he wants to lay claim to it. And obviously with a show like Fargo, you can imagine that things don't always go according to plan. Usually things never go according to plan. So you have the new female lead, who's a single mom, and her son, they're having a visit with their grandfather. I think it's the paternal grandfather in this case, and the son forgets one of his model little gifts, which doesn't seem to have that much monetary value, at least on the surface, but because it's his grandpa and he forgot the present there, they turn around, and then through happenstance, the parolee mistook the address and ended up trying to rob the grandfather, and of course you see that bad things happen. So it did take a little bit more patience to get into this particular season opener, but that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily as that it won't necessarily be as good as the previous seasons. Although I did feel like season 2 was was quite enjoyable. I just caught up on it recently, but it wasn't as I was blown away by season 1. I wasn't as much blown away by season 2. With the season opener for season 3, I'm just getting into these characters, so it's going to take a while for this season to grow on me, but I look forward to it. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have watched it, and I hope you'd enjoyed it, and we hope to follow it on the podcast. Thanks.
Enjoyed this episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint? Then don't forget to tip the barkeep by subscribing and reviewing us on iTunes and Stitcher. Also, for some sizzling noir tales, head on over to Amazon to check out Anthony's hard-boiled fiction, available in print, digital, and audiobook formats. On social media, follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Venutolo or like his page on Facebook. For everything else, please visit his webpage at www.anthonyvenutolo.com. We'll see you next week.